Now, I think Uber is a super popular app that people use to either order food or just go on simple rides. And no, this video isn't sponsored by Uber, and if anything, Uber, please don't delete my Uber account after this because I still order food from you guys. But let's just say today's story is about the most insane Uber driver ever, and you guys will understand why. Basically, this whole story starts off back when I was in my grade 11 year. Now, in grade 11, I was a pretty cool dude. If anything, I was up the popularity food chain because of one thing that I had that most high schoolers didn't, and that was a car. I had a Toyota Celica GT, and that was 2001 model, so it looked kind of like a sports car when in reality it really wasn't. But I remember this thing was such a prized possession to me when my parents gave it to me when I was 16, because no joke, everyone in my school always wanted rides. Many people thought I was cool for just even having this vehicle, and every time I would show up to school with my car and just take my backpack out of the back seat, many girls were always looking at me that were just entering inside the school from just taking the bus before. It was such a major flex, and if anything, I could understand why rich people love cars, because especially if you had one back in high school, it kind of builds up to the point where you always wanted a supercar. Hell, even I want a crazy car. But let's just say back when I was in high school, I wasn't the best person to take care of a vehicle. If anything, I didn't really know how to change a tire. I always had my parents to do it, but to be fair, I was 16 and I didn't take auto shop class, so I didn't really know any better. It got to the point where I remember there was one day when I was driving back home from school, and when I was parking my vehicle, I ended up realizing that there was a really weird scraping sound that was happening every time I was putting my car in park, anytime I was really braking in that matter. It got to the point where I called my dad out to see what was going on with my car, and he ended up looking under my hood and saw it was nothing with the engine, but that my brake pads were extremely, and I mean extremely damaged, to the point where it was basically almost redeemed unsafe to drive anymore. I ended up telling my dad how I needed my car to go to school and stuff, and I asked if I could borrow his car, but my dad had a car that was a Chevy Malibu that he would never let me drive. He said that I was too irresponsible, and especially for how I treated this car, he didn't want his car to be destroyed. And to be fair, now that I'm a lot older, I completely understand what he was talking about, and I don't blame him, especially since I didn't even know how to take care of a vehicle. Anyways, I remember me and my dad that day right after school, we ended up basically driving over to the auto shop that was near my house, and he ended up taking care of the brake pads that we needed done. But it was gonna take apparently a month because he was so backed up in how many vehicles he had to take care of. So I remember the shop owner was like, so it's gonna take a while for this to be done. I would say about a month. My dad ended up getting upset because he was like, but my son needs to drive to school. How will he get to school? Sir, can you not drive him yourself? He's a driver. You should be asking him. What if I wasn't here? What if I was dead? Okay, dad, calm down. I think he gets the point, is what I told him. Because my dad, when he knew I wanted something really done quick, he would try to do his best to make sure it was well done perfectly. Anyways, the auto shop owner ended up realizing that I needed to really basically find a way to go to school, and he knew that I was definitely not going to take the bus, because apparently when you start driving, taking the bus is like the hardest thing to do. Like, I haven't taken the bus since I was in high school. In my grade, what was it, 9 year was the last time I took the bus? So it was already like 3 years in that I didn't take the bus, and the system updated, and I didn't really understand how to take the bus. And still to this day, I actually don't know how to take the bus. So the auto shop owner, knowing this and knowing our situation, he ended up giving us a really good deal where he ended up handing me a card that said the word Uber on it. Now, I didn't know what this card was, but apparently it was for unlimited rides for an entire month. I don't know if this was a real thing, to be honest, but I remember when I downloaded the app that day for the first time in ever, I ended up realizing that this Uber card, literally, I could book rides and it was always free. It was the best thing ever, and I remember I got super excited to the point where I started taking rides randomly. But one thing I always felt uncomfortable about is that there was a bunch of different Uber drivers that would come pick me up. Some of them are really old, cranky, old white men that really just hate the world for some reason, and some of them are just random people that really are just awkward in the car. So as much as I love getting free rides, it really became super awkward, especially when it came to going anywhere in this world. It got to the point where I decided to only take the Ubers to just take me to school and back. And this is where things got kind of weird, because I remember one day I ordered my Uber to basically take me to school, except I'm not gonna lie, I really did not know how to feel about pulling up to school in an Uber, but I just ended up telling my friends and stuff that it was just my sister slash cousin that was driving me to school. I don't know, I basically made an excuse every time when I got to school about who was driving me instead of saying it was an Uber driver. I don't know why I thought it was embarrassing, because I think it's pretty cool that you're going to take Ubers every day to school, but it is pretty expensive, and on top of that, I don't really know how people would feel about that. Comment down below what you think. Going on, I remember it got to the point where it was a Wednesday, and on Wednesday, I remember I was, getting ready for school and stuff, and when I ordered my Uber, a nice lady with a white Tesla that was a really nice car ended up coming to pick me up. She picked me up, and I sat in her back seat, and I remember she was just this attractive 20-year-old lady doing Uber for just extra money while she was going to university. I thought this was really cool, and me and her actually ended up talking, which was funny enough because most Uber drivers are awkward, but she was actually willing to speak to me, and she was actually kind of cool. Me and her were talking about a lot of different things as she was driving me to school, and then she ended up asking me the question, oh, so like, you know, I'm in school. Are you in school as well? No. I'm just working. You know, it's my off year. Okay, that's cool, I guess. I mean, you're really cute. Oh, thanks. I mean, you are really cute as well. And at that moment, me and her started flirting with each other in the Uber. Now, I don't know if it's a rule to not flirt with your people that you drive around, but me and her were hitting it off, so I didn't really complain. So as me and her kept flirting back and forth, it got to a point where I did not want this girl to know I was 16, because I'm 16, she's 20, she's a lot older than me, she's legal, I'm not legal. Yeah, you can kind of see the mess where it's coming from. So it got to the point where I remember as she was driving me to school, she ended up realizing that she was about to drop me off at a high school, and she said to me, oh, did you put the right address down? No, actually, it's the pizza place across the street. I work there. Oh, that makes more sense. If for some reason it's showing me to take you to a high school. Oh yeah, no, that's really weird. I don't know what's going on. That's my bad. Oh, it's no problem at all. Here, I'll just take you to the pizza place instead. She ended up taking me to the pizza place across the street that was luckily owned by one of my friends. And I remember when I got dropped off there, my buddy that ended up actually going to school with me, that his parents owned the pizza place, ended up coming out, and he looked at me and saying, yo, Bubba, why are you here? Don't you know we start school in like literally like 10 minutes? Oh yeah, I mean, I just wanted to hang out with you, man, obviously. And I ended up talking to him outside the pizza place as if I worked there. And since he worked there, it kind of made sense. And I waited till she ended up leaving. And then that's when I ended up basically walking with my buddy to school. Honestly, I never thought I would see her again. You know, we hit it off, but obviously, like, I don't know why I lied to her. I didn't think I was gonna see her again anymore until the next day. And on Thursday, I remember once again, I got ready for school. I put my backpack on and I put the address back to my school. And when I ordered the Uber, I realized that when I was looking on the app, I saw it was her once again. At this moment, I got really excited, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, wait, I put the school address down. Okay, hopefully I can make the same excuse. And when she came pick me up, she's like, oh, hey, stranger. I knew it was you. I recognized the name when I was accepting the drive. Oh, hey, yeah. How's it going, cutie? Oh, I'm good. Here, hop in. I ended up hopping inside her car and she ended up driving me to school. And once again, we were flirting back and forth to the point where I basically ended up making a move. What move did I make? Well, not that kind of move, obviously, because, you know, she was driving. I ended up making the move of basically asking for her number. I know it sounds really bold, but it's actually not that hard to ask for a girl's number. I've done many crazy ways of asking for a number. And if you guys want to know how I ask for girls' numbers or just even approach a girl, follow me on Twitch. I usually stream on there basically like once a week or as much as I really can. But if you guys get notifications on, you guys will see me live stream and you guys can talk to me in person. I guess through the computer, but same thing. Going on though, I remember after I got this girl's number, she was basically all, you know, cheery and happy. And me, I was also pretty excited and happy because I just got a hot girl's number. And then I remember she ended up dropping me off at the pizza place once again. And that's when my buddy comes out and he's like, dude, why do you keep getting rides to my work? And who are these people driving you? Oh, that was my girlfriend. Your girlfriend drove you to school? Yeah. And she owns a Tesla? What happens to your car? Don't worry about it. You know, just me doing me is what I told him. And basically from there, I ended up walking to school with him, hoping that I was in the clear. Everything was totally fine until rumor got out that I had a girlfriend, which kind of sucked. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind this girl being my girlfriend. But it wasn't until the next day where once again, I got ready for school and guess who picks me up? That's right, the same Uber driver. She comes, she picks me up, and I remember me and her, once again, we were flirting, except this time I sat in the front seat of the car. For some reason, she thought we were close because she literally texted me the night before. So basically from there, I sat in the front seat with her and we started heading to basically the pizza place. This time I actually put the map to the pizza place because I didn't want to risk it. And to be fair, it was literally just across the street. 2-minute walk wouldn't kill anybody. We end up going on this ride, and I remember as we're on the way to school, she's like, oh, how late can you be for work? Well, I mean, I start work in like 30 minutes. Okay, well, want to see something cool? Sure, what? She ends up putting the address to the pizza place I worked at, and she ends up putting it on her Tesla and turned on some sort of button to make it drive by itself. I saw that she wasn't even touching the wheel, wasn't touching the pedals, and the car was totally self-driving. Now, I know this is not new technology, but back when I was 16, I thought this was insane, dude, because not even my old car that was in 2001 could do that. I remember I was super amazed, and then that's when she told me we should go to the back seat. Is that safe? Bubba, these cars are meant to drive themselves. To be honest, my dad got me this because he knows it's super safe. Okay, sure. So me and her, we ended up one by one going into the back seat as this car was driving by itself. And me and this Uber driver girl ended up basically making out in the back seat to the point where she took off my pants, and yeah, I think you guys can guess where it went from there. We ended up doing the Devil's Tango in the back seat while the car was driving by itself. By the way, fair warning, don't do what I do in these stories, okay? It could lead to a lot of trouble, a lot of bad things, and you could basically almost end up in jail. But going on with the story, I remember we finally got to the pizza place, and I was basically not wearing anything in the back seat, and neither was she. For some reason, she thought it would be normal and totally fine for me and her to just get out of the car, put on her clothes, right in front of the pizza place, by the way. And that's when my buddy comes out saying, "Whoa, Bubba, getting on with your new girlfriend, eh?" "Oh, I'm not his girlfriend. Sorry, I gotta go." She ends up pulling up her pants finally and ends up going and driving away. And that's when my buddy looks at me saying, "Dude, I thought she was your girlfriend." "Oh, she is. She was just joking." Anyways, let's go to school. We end up walking down to school and stuff. And at that moment, I realized that me and this girl was gonna be trouble because my buddy was already suspicious, and I thought it'd be the best thing to probably cut her off and pretend she didn't exist. I don't know how I came to that conclusion, to be honest. I wish me and her still talked, but at the same time, I was 16. Yeah, never mind. It was definitely never gonna work out. But one thing I did realize was that the next day when I blocked her, I ended up not taking an Uber to school because it was a Saturday, and I don't have schools on Saturdays. No school should be on Saturday. If you have school on Saturday, your life sucks. And on the Monday when it came up, I told him the whole entire story. It was really weird too, because like I still had to wait like another 2 weeks for my car, and every time she accepted I ended up basically giving her a bad review and refusing to get into a car with her. Yeah, not the smartest thing, but at the same time, hey, I remember when I got inside this Uber that was supposed to be an hour-long ride. I remember she looks over at me sitting in the back and she goes, "So, your name's Bubba?" Yeah, hi. "So why are you driving an hour?" And when I told her the story, let's just say she ended up saying, "Well, I mean, I can quickly park if you want to, you know, have some fun." And that's when I realized this Uber driver was sus. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but super embarrassing story. So this story takes place back 2 years ago. Now, 2 years ago, I was just a basic dude making stories online and just kind of doing my own thing. And I remember one time 2 years ago, I was filming a video for, you know, just to post on the channel. And as I was in the middle of telling a crazy story that happened to me, out of nowhere, I ended up getting a phone call. I ended up seeing it was one of the girls from back when I was in high school that honestly, I haven't spoken to in a long time. I wasn't sure why this girl was calling me, but honestly, I decided to basically pick up and say, "Hey, like, what's going on?" "OMG, Bubba, is this still your number?" Yeah, what's up?" "Oh, well, honestly, like, it's been so long, and I was wondering, do you want to, like, maybe, like, hang out sometime?" "Are you asking me out?" Well, kind of, not really. I mean, honestly, like, I was just, like, you know, wanting to see if we could, like, reconnect. I'm calling some people to see, like, you know, how's life going with others and stuff." I realized when she was stuttering and being super awkward, I ended up telling her, I mean, sure, do you want me to pick you up?" Yeah, that would be awesome. Here, I'll tell you my address." She ended up telling me her address, and I remember later on that day we decided to meet up. And right as this girl hung up the phone, I ended up calling another one of my homies. Now, the reason I called my friend was because honestly, he was like the only person I still spoke to after high school, and you know, ever since I ended up, you know, growing on the internet. And when I called him, I said, "Yo, bro, remember that girl from high school?" Yeah, wait, what about her?" "Well, apparently she like just called me and she wants to like go out." "Wait, what? Seriously?" "Yeah, like I don't really know why." At that moment, I ended up like basically discussing details with him about how I used to like this girl back in high school, but then nothing ever happened. So I decided to give up on it. And as we were talking about it, I remember he said, "Bubba, you gotta understand, back then, she didn't go for you and things didn't happen. Why would it all of a sudden happen now? In my opinion, cancel the date, bro. You might get into a sticky situation." And honestly, that was advice I wish I took, but I didn't. If you guys don't know, one of the reasons why I have a lot of crazy stories is because I go through life saying yes. So right as I hung up the phone to my homie, I ended up finishing my video that I had to do, and I ended up getting ready to go see this girl. I remember as I was driving on the way to her place, I got super nervous because I ended up driving into the town that I grew up in. And once I finally got to her place, I remember I ended up picking her up. Me and her, we ended up going on this like coffee date to the city. And right as I parked my car, we ended up going to a cafe. When we walked inside the cafe, I remember she was telling me all about her life and stuff and how, you know, how it's crazy things change throughout high school till now, which I'm gonna be honest with you guys here. If you guys are in high school right now, or even in middle school, when you guys reach graduation, nothing's the same. Everything you did in high school or was known for in high school won't matter. As sad as that is, going on with the story, I remember she ended up telling me, oh, and like, honestly, like, I heard about all the stuff you're doing online. It's honestly insane. Yeah, I don't really know. It's fun, I guess. Yeah, honestly, like, I wish my boyfriend could do something like that. I remember I looked at her and I'm like, wait, what? Your boyfriend? And that's when I was so confused. I was kind of like really annoyed as well because like, who goes on like a one-on-one date with a guy and then that has a boyfriend? Like, what? So I ended up telling her, I didn't know you had a boyfriend. Oh, yeah, I do. Don't you remember him from high school? And when she told me his name, no joke, I was fuming. And the reason I was so mad was because the guy she ended up saying was one of the guys that used to pick on me back in high school, saying that I was going to be nothing with my future. I ended up getting really upset and I looked at her and said, wait, so if you have a boyfriend, why'd you ask me out here? Oh, well, to be honest, like I heard about like all the social media online stuff you're doing and I was wondering if you could help me out promote some stuff. At that moment, I got so annoyed and I got up and I said, listen, like I really don't have time for this and I thought you were cool or something, but I'll be honest, you're just a jerk. At that moment, I remember my friend's advice and honestly, at that moment, I wish I took it. But things were just about to go insane because as me and her were exiting the cafe, she ended up like trying to make it up to me and kept apologizing and everything. But right as we finally got up to my car, I realized that my car wasn't there. Apparently, I got towed. So I thought this day couldn't get any worse, but my vehicle got towed since apparently the parking meter ran out of minutes and I was doomed. I ended up getting stuck in the middle of the city with a chick that literally has a boyfriend. I thought things couldn't get worse, but honestly, they did because I remember me and her just ended up looking at each other and she said, oh, okay, well, you know what? Maybe it'd be smart if you called an Uber. You want me to call an Uber? Yeah, like, don't you have the app? At this moment, I did not have the app. I never used it because I had a damn car, so there was no point in me getting an Uber app, but I ended up downloading that day. And by the way, this is not sponsored, so Uber, if you're watching this, pay me. But going on, right as I download the app, I ended up booking my Uber for my place. But then this girl looks over at my phone and she saw I was doing that and said, wait, Bubba, are you not going to drop me off home? At that moment, I felt bad and I honestly was going to say no, but I felt bad again. So I ended up saying, yeah, sure. Here, type down your address. She ended up putting down her address and we waited like 5 minutes for an Uber to show up. And when we finally got the Uber, I remember me and her, we got inside the car and we started heading first to her place. I don't know why she put her place first in the address, but I guess she just did not want to see me after what happened. But I remember during the Uber ride, I kept looking at the driver and the driver kept looking at me in her rear view mirror. And she kept staring me down, looking at me very awkwardly until finally she spoke and said, oh, so like, are you guys like together? I remember me and her looked at each other and we're like, no, like, you know, we're just friends from high school. Oh, okay. Not to make weird anything. Wasn't sure. And she kept driving. When we finally got to her place, she ended up leaving the car without even saying goodbye to me and ended up slamming the door shut. At that moment, the Uber driver looks at me again and says, so, your name's Bubba? Yeah, it's just my middle name is what I told her. And then that's when she said, oh, honestly, like there's a lot of tension in the car. Like what was going on between you guys? You guys like just break up or something? And that's when I ended up telling her basically everything that happened from me, you know, going up to meet her and, you know, picking her up, my car getting towed. Basically, I trauma dumped her. I'm not gonna lie. And I remember she ended up looking at the map on her phone, going back to my place, and she saw it was an hour ride back since I literally went to a different town just to meet up with this girl. And she said to me, well, honestly, I could quickly park if you want some action. At that moment, I had really no idea what she was talking about until she ended up parking the car into an alleyway in the city. And she ended up getting out of the car, going to the back seat beside me. And well, yeah, apparently I did get some action. I ended up doing the devil's tango with my Uber driver, which by the way, this Uber driver was super sus for doing that, which is honestly insane. But I remember me and her were in the back seat, shaking the car for like a good, like, I don't know, maybe like 20 minutes. And then finally when things ended, she ended up getting out, going back to the front seat and started driving back to my place. Honestly, I felt really uncomfortable with her knowing my address since, you know, we just did the devil's tango. But honestly, she ended up actually making some pretty good conversation on the way there. And I think the weirdest part was that she was talking about her two kids very comfortably after we literally just did the devil's tango. Now, I think many people my age has their driver's license. And if you guys don't have your driver's license, I would highly advise getting one. But today's story is honestly something insane and that you guys gotta hear because, well, let's just say the one time I didn't drive somewhere, I ended up taking a taxi and that taxi ended up being the best taxi of my life. But before the story starts, obviously make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Also, not to mention, I am live on Kick streaming and telling crazy stories just like this one. So watch me live on kick.com/Bubba. Other than that, let's get straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story takes place back when I was actually, funny enough, out of high school. I had a car, I was driving, and to be honest, I always made YouTube videos. I always wanted to be a YouTuber back then, and that's all I really focused on. But I remember basically one thing I always enjoyed doing was going out and doing the Devil's Tango. But not only that, I would go out and basically hang out with friends, go to bars, go to clubs, anything to keep my mind active. Because being at home all day filming really does get in a person's head. But I remember one time I was swiping through Tinder and I met this girl. And this girl, she actually didn't live far from me, but at the same time, she lived like, I want to say a 20-minute drive from me, which to me doesn't really matter. But I remember one time she told me, oh, like, do you want to like go to a bar and then like, I don't know, like go back to my place? I ended up saying, why not? And basically, I remember I decided to basically get my things and start getting ready to go to see her. That night, I remember it was a Friday night, and basically me and her, we went to a club that was kind of like in the middle between our places. I remember me and her, we ended up going there, and obviously I didn't drive to the club because, well, if I was gonna drink, why would I drive there? So I remember I ended up basically getting a taxi, and I basically started heading over there. When I got there, nothing was odd about the taxi ride I took that time. But then I remember when I got to the club and I started seeing her, me and her, we did the whole thing, from taking shots to drinking a lot of alcohol. By the way, drinking alcohol, don't do it underage, guys. It's not cool. But on top of that, I remember me and her, it got to the point where we were on the dance floor till 2 a.m. I remember afterwards, after like when it got to like, you know, the closing point of the club, I remember she ended up telling me, oh, like, Bubba, like, do you want to like go back to my place? Yeah, sure, I'm down, is what I told her. And she got all excited, and I remember she instantly ordered an Uber. Now me, I never was familiar with the Uber app. I know it's popular out there, and I know many people use it, but I never used Uber. But she basically had like the app on her phone, and she ended up ordering an Uber for us. And that night, me and her, we ended up going inside this Uber and heading straight to her place. When we got to her place, honestly, you guys probably know this about me. It got straight to from watching TV to doing the Devil's Tango. And we did that for, you know, a while. But I want to say like only an hour went by for when we were doing the Devil's Tango. And I kind of wanted to get home because I wanted to get home and edit videos so I could upload the next day. So I remember as this girl was sleeping, I decided to go outside from her place and, you know, basically got all my clothes on and went outside to basically call a taxi. But when I was calling a taxi though, one thing I realized as the phone was ringing to get to a taxi service, I remember there was a taxi already driving by her place. I remember when I saw the taxi, I rose my hand up and I'm like, oh, like over here. And I got inside the taxi, and when I went in the car, I realized that this taxi looked kind of abnormal. And by abnormal, I mean, it didn't seem like a normal taxi that I've ever seen, but I mean, a taxi's a taxi, right? So I remember I got in there and I saw there was a driver, and the driver was this blonde woman with blue eyes that seemed a lot older than I was. I remember I instantly just told her the address, and she's like, oh, okay, you're on for a ride. And basically me and her, we started driving to my place. Now, one thing that's really funny is that I live in a town where I basically know this place like the back of my hand. You know, when you live in like a city or a town that you grew up in, you usually know where everything is. But when it came to this lady, for some reason, and I mean it, for some reason, she was taking like loops around corners, and she was basically almost going in circles part of the time. And every time she would do this, she would always try to strike a conversation. Like, for example, she asked me how old I was 3 different times. At that point, I remember I told her my age, and I said I was 19. You know, I told her that, you know, my dream is to become a YouTuber and stuff. And one thing I started to realize was that there was a camera in the car. Now, I thought the security camera was normal. I'm gonna be honest, it's not the first time I saw a camera inside a vehicle, but for it to be a GoPro, well, now you're talking kind of sus. At this point, I decided to ask her a question and say, oh, like, so like, how long you been taxi driving for? She ended up looking behind and looked at me and said, oh, like, I don't know, like couple months, I guess. Oh, so you're new to it. That's cool. And I remember basically I started talking about, you know, how it would be hard to be a taxi driver. I don't know. I'm just trying to relate to the person, right? Make the drive less awkward since she's taken the longest way possible to go back to my place. I remember from there, basically, me and her, we were driving, and I want to say like 20 minutes into our drive, actually a bit longer. I want to say 25 minutes. She ended up pulling over. She pulled over and she's like, oh, like, sorry, like, I forgot something in my trunk. Okay, is what I said. And then instantly, she went to her trunk real quick, got, like, some sort of, I don't know, some, like, card reader thing for, like, a machine, a debit machine, so I could pay for my, like, you know, taxi drive, because I was not gonna pay in cash, because I didn't have cash on me at the time. And then from there, she came back to the front seat, she put the debit machine down, and then she told me, oh, like, if you want, you could pay for it now. Yeah, sure. So from there, I start paying the taxi driver, you know, I'm trying to pay her, you know, to basically, you know, drop me off. But the thing that was really odd is that for some reason, reason, the machine wasn't working. And I know my card has money in it, right? Like, I know I have the money to pay for this taxi, but for some reason, over and over, I tried 5 different times. The machine didn't work. So then she asked me, oh, like, so like, do you have cash? I don't actually, sorry, is what I said. And then that's when she said, oh, well, like, how are you gonna pay me back then? And at that point, I didn't know what to do. I remember as she was driving, I kind of just sat there thinking, okay, how is this gonna go down? I was thinking maybe a friend of mine could maybe come over to my place and quickly pay for it. I have no idea. But then she decided to say the really weird thing, and this is where things all went crazy. And she said, oh, like, if you want, like, you can pay for it a different way. And she took off her blouse, meaning she took off her clothing in front of me in the front seat of the car, and she showed me her cherries. She had nice cherries, but honestly, at that point, I didn't know what to say. I'm like, oh, wait a second. And that's when I realized what kind of taxi this was. Honestly, I didn't know what else to do, and to be honest, I did have to pay the woman. So I remember I told her, okay, well, like, I mean, I'm down, but like, can you not record me? She looked at the camera and she looked at me and she's like, oh, wait, you knew I was recording? Yeah, is what I said. And she kind of just goes, oh, okay, fine. And then she ends up turning off the camera. She parks the taxi, or I guess a fake taxi at this point, in like a parking lot that was really deserted and remote. And me and her, she basically got to the back seat and we ended up doing the Devil's Tango. We were doing it for, I want to say, like less than half an hour. And to do the Devil's Tango twice in one night was actually kind of crazy. But I remember I basically ended up going in there and, you know, I did my duty. I paid the lady in some sort of way that she was happy with. And she ended up driving me home. And then that's when she said, I had a lot of fun tonight. Yeah, sure, thanks. And I basically closed the taxi door and went straight back into my place. I'll say this much, it was super awkward knowing that what just happened, and I was debating on calling the cops about it, but at the same time, it's not like I paid, you know? Like, she wasn't a prostitute. So, you know, I mean, I guess it is what it is. But anyways, guys, that is it for today's video. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, fall for more embarrassing but crazy stories. Peace out, guys.